My entire world came crashing down when my son, my 18-year-old boy I'd sacrificed everything for, told me 2 words. It's ruined. Ruined, not a scratch, not a dent, but completely, irrevocably ruined.
Yeah, everything's
And all
secure
because
here.
he took
Just
my
finished the check.
one-of-a-kind classic car, the one I'd explicitly forbidden him to touch, for what he called just a minute. But it wasn't just a minute, was it? It was a clandestine date night with his new girlfriend, and he hadn't just used the car, he had used it. Used it in the most intimate, degrading, and permanent way possible, and then tried to pretend like nothing happened. I had walked into the garage, saw a stain on the leather seat that no amount of scrubbing would fix, and my stomach dropped out. The betrayal, the disrespect, the utter cavalier destruction of something priceless and personal. It was a punch to the gut that left me breathless. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the line he had obliterated, the trust he had vaporized. So, I'm asking you, as someone who is now facing the total collapse of their relationship with their child, was I wrong for the nuclear option I chose as a consequence? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. You have to understand the context of this car. This isn't just some old beater. This is a 1967 Mustang Fastback that I had spent nearly 15 years restoring. 15 years of saving every extra penny, of late nights in the garage smelling, of grease and gasoline, of sourcing original parts from across the globe. This car, which I'll call the Ghost because of its sleek, dark finish, was my therapy, my retirement fund, and the one true dream I had managed to pull out of the wreckage of my first marriage. It was immaculate, a showpiece, and its value, both sentimental and monetary, was astronomical. My son Ethan knew all of this. He grew up watching me work on it, heard every story, and he knew the one cardinal rule of my entire existence. You do not touch the Ghost without my direct, explicit permission. And even then, only to look. Ethan had just turned 18, an age that apparently comes with a tidal wave of entitlement and a complete lack of foresight. He was a good kid, mostly, polite to strangers, decent grades, but lately, he'd developed this cocky swagger that I found instantly grating. He'd also just started dating a girl named Chloe, a sweet but slightly high-maintenance girl from his school. I'd warned him about the costs of dating and the need for responsibility. I'd offered him my practical, everyday sedan, the one I use for work, anytime he needed it for a date. No questions asked. I even helped him set up a part-time job so he could afford his own gas and dates. The arrangement was perfect, completely fair, and designed to foster independence. But, as all 18-year-olds think, my car, the boring sedan, just wasn't cool enough for his grand, new relationship. He wanted to impress Chloe, and apparently, only the Ghost would suffice. This all happened on a Friday evening. I was out of town on a last-minute business trip, the first one in months, and I'd left Ethan with clear, written instructions. Stay home, do your homework. Sedan key is on the hook. The Ghost keys are in my safe, which only I have the code to. I felt good about it. The Ghost was locked in the garage, the safe was secure, and he had a perfectly good car to use if he needed it. I'd be back Sunday morning. What could possibly go wrong? Well, Ethan, in a move of stunning arrogance, decided to use the fact that I was away as an opportunity, not a boundary. He didn't just break the rule about the car. He broke into my personal safe. It turns out he'd watched me enter the combination for years and had finally memorized the sequence. That fact alone felt like a secondary massive violation. He wasn't just borrowing a car. He was burglarizing me. He took the keys to the Ghost, texted Chloe to get ready, and drove my pristine, irreplaceable dream machine out for his date. Now, I only found out all this detail later, of course. The next morning, I was stuck in a soul-crushing boardroom when I got a text from Ethan. It was just a single word, "Sorry," followed by another, "Need to talk when you get back." Alarm bells immediately went off. Ethan only says sorry like that when he's done something truly catastrophic. I tried to call him, but he wouldn't answer. Panic set in. My mind immediately went to the worst-case scenario, an accident. I imagined the ghost crumpled on the side of a highway, the years of work and love reduced to scrap metal. I cut the meeting short, booked the next impossible flight home, and spent the entire journey in a cold sweat, imagining the insurance claim, the loss, the sheer devastation. When I finally got back on Sunday morning, I didn't even bother with my luggage. I ran straight for the garage, and there it was, the ghost. Intact, no visible damage to the body. A wave of relief so intense I nearly buckled over washed through me. "Thank God," I whispered. But then I looked closer. The car was parked slightly crooked, which was unusual for Ethan. The floor mats were also slightly askew, and the car had a weird, sweet, cloying scent that was definitely not the expensive leather cleaner I used. Then I saw it, the stain. It was on the passenger seat, a dark, unmistakable, sticky-looking patch on the light tan leather, and it looked like someone had tried, and failed miserably, to wipe it away with a damp cloth. My eyes zeroed in. It was absolutely, unequivocally clear what the stain was, what had happened in my beloved car. It was the physical proof of his massive, world-breaking disrespect. He didn't just drive it. He had turned my 15-year passion project into a cheap motel room. I stood there for a full 2 minutes, just staring, the adrenaline turning into a furious, shaking rage. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just felt this cold, hard, definitive finality settle over me. I walked out of the garage, found Ethan in the kitchen eating a bowl of cereal, and just held up the car key, which he had sheepishly placed back on the hook for the sedan. I didn't even have to say a word. He looked at the key, then at my face, and his whole body went instantly rigid. He knew I knew. I calmly, terrifyingly calmly, asked him to tell me exactly what happened, leaving out no detail. He mumbled, he stuttered, he tried to downplay it. "It was just for an hour, Dad, I swear. Chloe wanted to go somewhere private, and I panicked. I just wanted her to be impressed." He had the audacity to talk about impressing her. I pointed out the safe, the explicit rule, and finally, the state of the passenger seat. That's when he broke. He dropped his head, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I tried to clean it. I didn't know how to get it out. I'll pay for the cleaning, I promise." That was the moment I realized he still didn't get it. He thought this was a matter of dry cleaning, not a fundamental breakdown of our entire relationship. He had treated my life's work as a disposable commodity for a 15-minute tryst. So that's the situation I was in. The son I loved, who I had worked for and cared for my entire adult life, had stolen from me, betrayed my trust on multiple levels, and irreparably desecrated something that was a part of my soul. I was standing there, looking at this boy, who is now a man-child with zero concept of consequences, and I had to make a choice. Let it go and teach him nothing, or make the consequence match the utter scale of the betrayal. Before I tell you what I did next, what the final brutal action I took was, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have forgiven him? Would you have demanded he simply clean the seat? Or would you have gone for the nuclear option? Tell me what you think, because this decision changed everything between us. I looked at the stain, then at Ethan's miserable, self-pitying face, and the decision crystallized, cold and sharp. I told him to follow me back out to the garage. He trailed behind me, whispering apologies that felt hollow and rehearsed. When we got to the ghost, I didn't look at the car. I looked at the boy. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely a tremor. "You broke 2 rules tonight. You stole from my safe, and you used the one thing in my life you knew was sacred, turning it into something disgusting." I paused, letting the weight of the moment hang. "And because you treat things as disposable when you're done with them, you have forfeited your right to own, or even drive your own property." He looked confused, his brow furrowed, expecting me to ban him from driving the sedan, the real punishment. The one I'd been formulating in that freezing cold anger came next. "That stain," I said, pointing directly at the seat, "is permanent. It's a reminder of your disrespect. And since you're so willing to disregard the value of things, you're going to understand the true value of your own property." I then pulled out the cordless drill from my workbench. Ethan's eyes went wide, but he still hadn't connected the dots. I walked over to the sedan, the car I had bought for him, his practical, everyday vehicle that was still technically in my name until his 21st birthday. I got down on my knees, placed the drill bit against the pristine alloy wheel, and with a deafening, terrifying whir, I drilled a large, deliberate, and irreparable hole right through the rim, completely ruining the wheel. Ethan let out a strangled cry. "Dad, what are you doing? Stop!" He lunged for me, but I stepped back, and I drilled a hole through the next one, and the next, and the next, until all 4 wheels were completely destroyed. The damage was over $5,000 in parts, but the message was priceless. I dropped the drill on the floor, the smell of burnt rubber and metal filling the air. "That," I said, pointing at the crippled car, "is the cost of treating other people's property, their sacrifices, and their trust with contempt. I will sell the ghost to a collector who will appreciate it, and every single penny will go into a separate account that you will never touch. The sedan is now useless. You will work, you will save, and you will buy your own car, and you will pay for the repairs to the leather in my car, which will cost more than you think, because it's a specialty job for classic cars, and you will do it from your own pocket." The look on his face was a mixture of utter disbelief, shock, and dawning horror. He screamed at me, called me a monster, told me I was overreacting, but I just stood my ground. "I taught you the value of money. Now I'm teaching you the value of respect." The aftermath was brutal. Ethan didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. He had to ride his bike everywhere, including to his minimum wage job. He tried to get his mother, my ex-wife, to intervene, but even she, after hearing the details about the safe and the stain, told him he'd messed up badly and that I was right to teach him a lesson, even if the lesson was harsh. The conversation with Chloe ended quickly, as he couldn't take her out anymore, and I suspect the shame was too much for his inflated ego to handle. I did sell the ghost, and seeing it driven away was one of the hardest things I've ever done. A final painful severance, but the clean money from the sale now sits in a brokerage account that is in my name, and I've never told Ethan about it, a private safety net that he unwittingly helped create. The most important consequence, however, is that he finally started to understand. He saved up, bought a used beater, and started paying the leather specialist in monthly installments. The repair bill for the seat was nearly $5,000. It took him over a year to pay it off, and every month, when he handed me the check, he looked me in the eye. He finally learned that some damage can never be truly cleaned, only paid for again and again. Our relationship is still fractured, distant, but the respect is back. He's starting to act like an adult who understands the cost of his choices. I don't know if I'll ever regret destroying his car, because it was the only thing that spoke his language. The shock of sudden, total loss. It broke something that needed to be broken, so that something better could be built in its place. Like this video, if you were on my side, if you think the punishment fit the crime. Subscribe for more stories like this, because I have a feeling the Reddit world has a lot to say about this one. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Tell me honestly what your reaction would have been in the moment. I'll see you all in the next story.